Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stuart Andrew Alexander.
Hi everyone, Stuart Andrew Alexander here, and today I'm talking with divorce coach and mediator Tara Eisenhard about approaching divorce cooperatively and viewing it as a new beginning. So with that said, let's bring her onto the show and hear what Tara has to say with us today. So Tara, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tara, can you just quickly share with us, where are you calling in from today?
I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
So let's just jump straight in with the first question then, Tara. Can you, in your own words, briefly describe the people you serve and the kinds of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for help?
Sure. I work with people at all stages of divorce, anywhere from the very beginning where they don't know what to do next to people who've maybe been divorced for several years, but they share children and they still have some hiccups along the way. Mainly, I serve people who value respect and cooperation, who believe that they have the power to affect positive change in their lives, and mostly people who really refuse to remain victims and stuck in an old story that doesn't serve them, blaming the other person. They might feel sad and scared and confused, but ultimately my clients know that it's a temporary stop on their journey and that they can do something to put themselves in a better place. And I'm here to help them do that.
Excellent. So when you think about the people who you help then, Tara, what's the most common misconception that's out there surrounding the desires or their desires, the goals they're trying to reach? What was one of the biggest misconceptions out there?
I think the biggest misconception is this societal issue and our cultural attitude toward divorce that says divorce is about sad endings. And there's a lot of shame that goes into that. People feel really bad about what they're doing. They think they're bad people, they're bad parents, they're bad partners, and it really hinders them on that process. It doesn't let them really break out, which is kind of where I come in, because I don't believe that at all.
Well, that's quite unique because, yeah, of course, people believe divorce does end in a sad thing. I mean, you get married in the first place to stay together forever and ever till death do us part, and something happens and divorce is now on the horizon. So could you just share an example of how you've actually helped somebody or maybe a couple that came to you and you were able to create some kind of transformation where they were able to see divorce as a completely different thing to what is usually accepted as the norm within society? Please, in your own words.
I can actually tell you a story that somebody told me after working with me. And I had a client who I had worked with him very early on in his journey, and he was very sad. He didn't know what to do next. He had this idea that his family was broken and that his family was over. And so a lot of the work that we did had to do with looking at it's not an end to his family, it's just a different organization of his family. And this client in particular is very involved in growing food, for instance. He's very much involved in the earth and the natural cycles of nature and gardening. And he told me several years later that he was talking to some friends of his and he told them about his divorce. And one of them said to him, and I forget what the term was, but it was something along the lines of being a good steward to the land and realizing that, for instance, when there's a forest fire, that there is regeneration and new growth that comes out of that. And the growth is natural. And you just have to be a shepherd in that process. And it happens in the earth, and it happens in our gardens over the winter, and it happens in forest fires, and it happens in our lives. And he said that it really kind of made everything mesh for him in realizing that it's part of a natural cycle, and there's an end, but there's also a beginning.
When you think about the people who come to you for help, please share with us one unknown pitfall that they might not be but should be aware of.
Sure. I think that the biggest thing that people go into divorce thinking, the only thing they need is a good attorney. And it's what we talk about when people talk about divorce. When you say I'm getting divorced, a lot of times people will say, do you have a good attorney, or who are you working with? And there's this idea that you need a good attorney, and whether that means that you need protection or you need somebody that's going to go out there and fight for you or speak for you. The attorney has their place in the process, but they're not the entire process. Divorce is a human process with a legal document attached to it. And if we look at marriage, for instance, marriage is also a human process with a legal document attached to it. And you wouldn't go to your lawyer to help you pick the flowers for your wedding. So we need to look at this as a bigger process and see that we don't want to give all the power to an attorney, because there's a lot more that goes into that. And there's a life and a relationship, especially if people share children, even after the legal piece of the process is over. So we need to be mindful of that as well.
So you're flying in the face of the status quo then, Tara, because everybody I know, and even myself, when I hear someone saying they're getting divorced, I always think, oh, I hope you've got a good attorney. So,
right.
Why do people think that? Where does that school of thought come from?
Well, I don't know where it originated, but it's so deeply ingrained in our culture because we see divorce as a war. We see it as a competition. And there's, if you've seen the movie The War of the Roses, Michael Douglas says to Danny DeVito at one point, he says, I want to win. And Danny DeVito says to him, there's no winning in this game. There are only various degrees of loss, which is true. However, people going into the process don't realize that they want to win and they want to get custody. It's in our vocabulary when we talk about divorce and we talk about the shame of the broken family or the broken home. We talk about winning and getting custody and getting the house and making somebody pay for something that was wrong. And we talk about opposing counsel. And it's a scary thing. And when you're in a scary situation, you want somebody to help you and protect you and speak for you and really give you that kind of ego boost, which is what the lawyer does and where that comes in.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Tara. So you shared some really good advice so far, Tara. Just like to briefly give the listener an opportunity to know a little bit more about yourself in terms of your background, your education, and your experience as it relates to the topic of divorce. So if you could just share a few moments, just go on a little bit about your backstory and yourself so that the listener can get to know a little bit more about you.
Sure. I am a child of divorced parents. My parents divorced when I was a teenager. They separated when I was about 13. And it was very scary initially, but as a result of that divorce, I realized that my family grew and my parents' relationship improved when they didn't have to live under the same roof anymore. And so ultimately, I grew up thinking that divorce was a good thing. And having that in my head, I grew up, I got married when my marriage, it was a bad marriage to begin with, but when it became evident that what we really needed to do was separate, I also had a very good divorce. We had a very cooperative process. We worked together. I didn't call a lawyer until we had already separated everything, and all we needed to do was just file the paperwork. So my divorce actually cost me less than $400. And my ex-husband and I are still on very friendly terms right now. So I had that good divorce perspective. When I told people that I was getting divorced, they were angry or sad for me. And that's what really made me become very curious about divorce and why other people see it so differently than what I had known it to be. So along the way, I also spent several years as a partner of a divorced dad. And through that experience, I saw a little bit more contentious divorce. I saw children in the middle. I tried to figure out what my position was as this kind of pseudo step parent. All of it really just continued to fuel my curiosity and looking at divorce as a whole in our culture and in our families and the way that people approach it and the things that they do, the tactics and the strategies that they use. And I really started to kind of dissect it and look into it a little bit more and read as much as I could. Then I found out about divorce coaching, and I did the training to be a divorce coach. I found out about mediation. I went to the mediation training. Somewhere in the middle there, I wrote my book, The D Word, Divorce Through a Child's Eyes, which tells the story of divorce from the perspective of a 12-year-old girl. And here I am. It's been about 10 years now.
That's a very varied background, rich with experience on the topic of divorce. So with that said then, Tara, what would be your best piece of advice to the listener out there who's either considering divorce, going through divorce, or even has gone through divorce? What would be your best piece of advice you'd like to share before we go?
Well, I would like to encourage people to really view their marriage in a kind of a different light. It's not just about staying together forever. It's about having a healthy partnership. And sometimes people grow in different ways, and that's okay. We all sort of evolve, and that's okay. I like to say that a good divorce is better than a bad marriage, first of all, and that a good divorce is possible. And then from there, we need to really look at seeing divorce in a new light. Divorce is a solution to a problem. It's a new beginning, and it's something that requires teamwork. So really what I encourage people to do is just kind of take our current paradigm and turn it around. And really, let's look at divorce the way that we look at marriage, in that people kind of take responsibility for what it is that they're building together for the rest of their lives. And in this case, the rest of their lives is separate, but there's still an element there of being able to have a conversation and work together for the good of their family.
So Tara, if there's anybody out there who wants to know more, how would they be able to connect with you?
Sure, they can connect with me they can look at my website. It's taraeisenhard.com, TARAEIS as in Sam, EN like Nancy, HARD like dog.com. I'm also on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn.
So thank you so much for your time today. You shared some very useful insights about, I'd say approaching divorce cooperatively and viewing it as a new beginning. That's a very fresh perspective. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this segment on the show. We'll be back with some more fascinating insights from divorce professionals across the country very shortly. So until then, take care and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.